Welcome to Father-Son Flight Sim. Today we are going to be looking at some scenery of Washington, D.C. Now we haven't had a video in a little while because we recently vacationed and we came up to Washington, D.C. for vacation to see some of the monuments and sites around the city. And I was curious to see how well that could be rendered in X-Plane. So today, because we're doing scenery, I'm flying the ultralight that comes with the with X-Plane, and we will be just touring some of the buildings and sites. All of this was created using free downloadable software from the org, including Washington D.C. downloadable buildings and the Ronald Reagan Airport, which we're taking off at, and also orthos that were done through the U.S. Ortho project. So we're at zoom level, I think 16 and 17 around airports, and we're just going to see how good this scenery depicts the sites that we saw in real life. So I'm going to go ahead and take off the brake here. We're going to get going. And flying the ultralight is a lot of fun. It's kind of freaky though, because I mean it really feels like you're flying a kite and you're really close to the ground, which makes it really kind of hard to judge your landing. Not sure what the wind's doing today. It looks like it's blowing a little bit towards the east. Now, don't do this in real life. You're liable to get shot down. As the airspace around Washington, D.C. is well guarded, and you have to be very careful when flying in this area, especially the approach into Ronald Reagan, which basically you follow the Potomac River and make a last-ditch turn to runway 19 most of the time. So it's great to do some plane spotting over at the Jefferson Memorial. We saw plenty of planes on approach doing just that when we were there at night. But we'll start with our first building, the Pentagon, which is also the first building we saw going into Washington, D.C. All right. Some of the roads look correct. I mean, looks very similar to, you know, what we should have seen there. And you'll notice that there's a lot of, looks like suburban neighborhood type scenery right around the Pentagon, which isn't real, you know, isn't what's real. I mean, it's basically a well-guarded parking lot. So that's not being reflected. I mean, the roads are correct, but there wouldn't be a suburban housing right there. I mean, all that's parking lot. So there's the Pentagon itself. It looks much, much darker in the scenery than it does in real life, but it does have the basic structure of the rings, and you know that, you know, it is a pentagon-shaped building. With several, I think 3 or 4, looks like 5 rings, each one having a different level of security clearance, each side representing the branches of the military. And then right around here would be Pentagon City, which also is not a suburban neighborhood, but that's what it's made to look like. So let's head over across the Potomac to the Jefferson Memorial. So right across this bridge. I'm not sure how much that's helping, but I'm just doing everything by pilotage. Of course, probably breaking half a dozen FAA regulations in the process. The bridge does look correct. There's a bridge over there that also looks correct, although I'm not sure that the road is actually on top of it, which is kind of interesting. So here in the Jefferson, I'll try to get a good look at it, but in the Jefferson Memorial, if you look inside, you can actually see the statue, I believe, in the scenery. And I'm getting hit on frames probably because of the workload of recording this, and also that we're close to the ground, so we have maximum objects right now. You can kind of see the statue in there, in the Jefferson Memorial. We took the taxi and were dropped off right about there, and then we walked up the stairs around to that building to the front. Underneath the Jefferson Memorial is a museum to his honor, which is worth checking out if you go. It's a beautiful memorial. I highly recommend it if you're in Washington, D.C. to go take a look at it, especially at night. All right, heading across the water, we're going to run into the Martin Luther King Memorial. Should be right around here. There it is, the incomplete memorial. Also depicted as incomplete in the scenery. Over here, kind of disappointing. This is the Lincoln Memorial, but you don't see the building. You just see the ortho. That is highly disappointing because it is one of the best sights to see in Washington, D.C. I wonder if there is another scenery that we can get for that would add that building, but it doesn't seem. And that was commented on the download on the org that they didn't have a good scenery for that. The Vietnam War Memorial right here, that is depicted. And the reflecting pool, which doesn't look very reflective, it looks kind of like green soup. It's not the cleanest pool of water because there's lots of ducks and stuff in it, but it does look more reflective than that. And we're coming up on the World War II Memorial, which is a great sight to see if you go there. And the Washington Memorial, which was closed when we were there. We didn't get to get very close to it because it was cordoned off. But there's the Washington Memorial. Something we like to call the National Bathroom, which was down there. Right next to it. And here's the rest of the mall, where you'll see lots of museums. One of the things we did was visit the Smithsonian, which is coming up here on our right, the Aerospace Museum, which houses a lot of the missiles from and equipment from the Apollo program, and also several examples of early airplanes. Spirit of St. Louis, I think, is in there. They had a Wright Flyer. Lots of cool stuff in there to see. Definitely recommend that one. Coming up on the Grant Memorial, which is currently being covered up by a tree, but you can get some great shots of the Capitol building from down there. And of course the Capitol building, this is the back of it. I always joked about how it's situated because it has its back to the Washington Memorial and the Lincoln Memorial, like they turned their backs on them. But down here should be the Welcome Center and not these suburban homes, and you can go underneath into the Welcome Center. And if you wait in line, you can go inside. Over here on our right is the United States Supreme Court building. Well, over here, have to take a. There you go. Supreme Court building there, which we did go inside, and it was cool to see. This kind of looks unfinished, or there's some conflicts going on here because there should not be trees inside. And then over here, the Library of Congress, flying over right now, also looks incomplete. Hello, everyone. All right, going down Pennsylvania Avenue, which is this diagonal road right here. We should run into the White House. There's some other iconic buildings, which I think the scenery is representing here. Like that one that's definitely not an Autogen building there. That's we didn't get to see everything, and so I don't know what everything is, but it was a spectacular city to see. Parks everywhere, much more than usual. So I think there was Union Station somewhere over there too. I think I remember seeing Union Station in the scenery. Alright, we're coming up on the White House, which is right straight ahead of us. And Franklin Park right behind it, looks like. Or Lafayette Park, I think. I don't remember. Here's the ellipse here in front of the White House, and of course the White House areas. There are some buildings missing here to the right, which is the Treasury Office, and of course the 1700s, I forget what that building is called, but that's being represented by urban scenery. Very cool to see the White House, by the way. We didn't get a chance to go inside, but definitely worth seeing. Maybe next time we're there, we'll go inside. Now, we're coming up on the place that we stayed while in Washington, D.C., which is right up here it's called Washington Circle. There's a statue of George Washington right in the middle of that traffic circle there. And the hotel, the One Washington Hotel, was right about there where we stayed. So everything was in walking distance, and it was not too badly priced, at least at the time we went. And there was a deal, 3-day deal there. So it was a nice trip. And then if you go down this road, you're going to pass George Washington University and head straight to the Lincoln Memorial, and that is actually a very walkable distance if you wanted to do that and not take the taxi from the hotel. Getting kind of low here, but we're heading back to Ronald Reagan Airport in a minute. There's once again, the Lincoln Memorial and the reflecting pool. Let's get some outside shots here before we head back. So let's see if I can get straight and level here and get some good shots. Let's get some shots with the Washington Memorial there, that would be good. Okay. And let's head back to Ronald Reagan. Alright, Jefferson Memorial right there. Or just crossing the Jefferson Memorial. And there's Ronald Reagan Airport right there. So let's line up to runway 19. And landing in ultralight is always very freaky for me because it's really hard to tell. Because of the way I'm sitting, it's not exactly the way you would sit in the ultralight, and so it always feels like my feet are gonna go into the ground or something. Okay, I'm going too fast here. See if I can slow down. Get some flaps in. Flaps. And look at the ortho's captured the ortho pictures captured a plane on final there. That's funny. Looks like he's lined up pretty good. Looks like I'm not. So let me get back over to the runway. Okay, I don't think I'm gonna need. There we go. I don't think I'm going to need another notch of flaps. Just kind of bring it down gently. All right, it's getting close. And I'm down. All right. Let me get off the runway here, put the flaps back up. So we had a great time. I think we were there for, we were in actually the city for about 3 days, 4 days maybe, and then on our drive up we went to Jamestown, Virginia, and then on the way back down to North Carolina we visited Monticello, the home of Thomas Jefferson. So really cool trip that we took. Good time for us and educational for the kids. I have I've done a lot of scenery work in the last couple of weeks. I've actually created ortho pictures for basically the entire western states, California, Washington, Oregon, and also all of the western states from Florida, Key West, all the way up to Maine. And you know, thinking about doing maybe a point-to-point series of trips. You know, maybe in the Bonanza or something. You know, starting maybe from San Diego, going all the way up to Juneau, Alaska, with a short series of point-to-point trips, which would require, you know, all the flight planning involved, weather considerations, and if we have ATC available, let's like bets and maybe even using ATC to do that trip or a series of trips. That would be fun. But it would be full like recording of you know, all the flight planning that would take place there. So thinking about doing something like that. Something I've always wanted to do in the real world, but never was able to really do. You know, I was always members of flight clubs. I never owned a plane, so we always had to rent, and doing a trip like that would have been really, really pricey. But in the simulator, it's pretty much free. So, well, other than the simulator cost. So we're thinking about doing that, and if you have any suggestions about how we can get better scenery, particularly in the Washington, D.C. area, like how we can get that Lincoln Memorial. If you have any knowledge about that, I would appreciate it. I'm sure there's probably a payware somewhere, but you know, if there's any other options, I would also be interested in that. Let's go ahead and we're going to stop on the taxiway here and close the video. So that's our first video in the ultralight, but it's also a scenery video. It's a good way to look at the sceneries that you've just completed if you had some special projects like this. So if you like this video and like to see more of it, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that alarm bell if you want to be apprised when we add new videos. I'll get the parking brake on here. And we'll see you next time on Father-Son Flight Simulator. Talk to you next time. Bye.